I call the Monday, March 18, 2024 meeting of the Louisa County Board of Supervisors to order. Ms. Barlow.
I move we convene in closed session pursuant to Virginia Code Section 2.2 3711 and 2.2 3712. The purpose of the closed session under Virginia Code Section 2.2 3711A, subsections 1, 5, and 8. 1, discussion and consideration of prospective candidates for employment of the public body, in particular for the position of County Attorney of Louisa County and Community Development Staff. 5, discussion concerning a prospective business or industry or the expansion of an existing business or industry where no previous announcement has been made of the business or industry's interest in locating or expanding in facilities in the community. And consultation. 8, consultation with legal counsel employed or retained by a public body regarding specific legal matters requiring the provision of legal advice by such counsel.
Is there a second?
Second.
Been properly moved and seconded that we go into closed session. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. We're in closed session.
So move.
Been moved that we go back into open session. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. I will now poll members to certify that to the best of your knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from the open meeting requirements under the Virginia Freedom of Information Act and as identified in the motion for which the closed meeting was convened were discussed and considered by the board. If any member believes that the board varied from the purpose stated for the closed meeting, please state so and the reason prior to casting a vote. Mr. McCotter.
So certified.
Mrs. Jones.
Yes.
Yes. Mr. Barlow.
Yes.
Mr. Barnes.
Yes.
Mr. Woodward.
Yes.
All right, we're certified. We're back into open session. This is the Monday, March 18th, 2024 meeting of the Louisa County Board of Supervisors. I would like to welcome those of you who are here in the public meeting room and those that are watching us online. We appreciate your participation and you being here. We will start this meeting, as we do with every meeting, with the invocation, which will be by Mr. Barnes tonight, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. If you would like to join us, please stand.
Let us pray. Lord of Lord, King of King. Father, I want to thank you for the opportunity that you have given us here to serve the people of Louisa County. Father God, I want you to bless us and keep us in your mindset and keep us doing the things that make you pleased. Father God, I ask you also to bless the troops that are protecting this great country, Father God, and that the work that we do here, Father God, be in your pleasing. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next is the adoption of the agenda. I know we do have some additions to the agenda. Mr. Barlow?
I'd like to add to the consent agenda resolution to enter into contract with Woodford Nutrient Credits for synthetic field installation project. And also a resolution to support Dominion Energy's Virginia efforts to seek funding for potential SMRS at North Anna Nuclear Power Station.
Second.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Next item is the approval of the minutes.
So move.
Second.
Been properly moved and second that we approve the minutes. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Next item is the approval of the bills.
So move.
Second.
Been properly moved and seconded that we approve the bills. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Next is the approval of the consent agenda.
So move.
Second.
Been properly moved and seconded that we approve the consent agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. We have no recognitions tonight. We'll move on to public comment period. During the public comment period, you can speak on any subject that is not a public hearing. We do have one public hearing tonight. So if you're here to speak on the public hearing, wait till the public hearing. When I call your name, come to the podium. You'll have 3 minutes unless you're with an organization. I do know we have one organization here tonight that has more than 3 minutes, but give your name and your voting district. You do not have to give your address. I will give you a warning when you have 15 seconds. The first card that I have is Richard Welch.
Thanks very much for allowing me to speak tonight. About a month ago, I sent...
Name and voting district,
I'm
Mr.
sorry.
Welch. Use the microphone.
Richard Welch, and I'm in Patrick Henry.
Yes, sir.
About a month ago, I sent each of you a suggested amendment to Section 51 of the county ordinances dealing with noise. And I've asked for two amendments to that requirement. The first is the discharge of firearms within 1 mile of any county public, private school should be prohibited. The second is discharging any firearm within 2,500 feet of residences other than the residence of the person discharging those firearms to be prohibited. My rationale is simple. If you look at 51, it states, "It shall be unlawful to create any unreasonable, loud, disturbing, and unnecessary noise as to be detrimental to the life and health of any person, or to unreasonably disturb or annoy the quiet, comfort, or repose of any person is hereby prohibited." The problem is that this particular ordinance excludes firearms. And what I'm asking is that that exclusion be removed only in the sense of giving a buffer zone between someone firing a weapon and a school. I'm asking for 1 mile. In this day and age, when our elementary, middle, and high school students are undergoing active shooter training, it makes no sense to allow someone 400, 500 yards from a school to sit and discharge a weapon. The same holds true for the residences. When you consider that people like me, a Vietnam vet, and I have worked a lot with veterans throughout my career, and in each case, they have indicated people with PTSD are set off primarily by the sounds of weapons. I don't think this is a big infringement on people. People want to go out, that's fine. As I should point out, the Second Amendment does protect the right to own and bear arms.
15 seconds.
Does not protect the right to fire those arms around residences. I thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I just want to make sure we don't go back and forth with citizens, but I want to make sure Mr. Welch know that his letter was submitted in our last board packet for official record.
Next is, it's either David Sexton or David Saxton. I'm not sure which.
I believe mine's for the public hearing.
Yours is for the public hearing? Okay, let me change it for you.
Sorry about that.
No problem. We're easy to get along with here. See, you're still wearing your St. Patrick's Day hat.
That's right.
I like it. Next is Lou Holiday, and it says budget as well. Is that for the public hearing?
No.
Howdy. I'm Lou Holiday. I live in, I think, the Mountain Road District these days. Y'all have kept gerrymandering things, so I'm not really sure. Good to see y'all. I know you miss me. I'm here tonight to speak as a geologist with an Earth reality check. Geology, the study of Earth, taught me to think long-term, that the only certainty is change. Sadly, most of our current thinking is short-term and driven by short-term profit. How much money can we make doing things the exact same way we've always done? We'll just ignore the reality racing at us. But rapid change is coming at us. Every weather, fire, flood, blizzard, drought, more extreme than yesterday. Earth is getting hotter and hotter and hotter. More heat trap, more extreme. And by the way, Earth does not care. To the James River Water Authority, these are rhetorical, I know you can't answer. Who's going to get the water from the James when the river, like much of last summer, is less than 1 foot deep? Louisa or Richmond? Who's going to get the water from Northeast Creek Reservoir during an extended drought? And they're coming. Local residents or Amazon to keep your data chill? Who's going to pay taxes, locals or Amazon? We all know the answer to that. For the last 6 years, I've been hearing, we don't want residential growth, we want industrial growth. Yet all I've seen is residential. But I haven't seen a good, fairly easy step to improve that growth. All new homes need solar panels on the roof and a 1,000-gallon cistern to catch rooftop runoff, to water the lawn, flush the toilet, because we don't need super clean water to flush the toilet. Fairly cheap, easy residential upgrades. I know. That would be change. Bummer. or don't change and just keep wasting water and build more poorly planned water lines and cut down more trees for solar plantations, which I have previously mentioned is just stupid. Another $42 million for a poorly planned water line, or fake it and drill another well at Zion Crossroads, like putting another straw in a big gulp Slurpee and thinking more sugar water will appear. Or develop things that people, lots of people and businesses want. No one wants development at Shannon Hill. Expand tourism. We still have a lovely rural county. Invite folks here. They spend their money and go home. Expand facilities that Louisa wants. Ball fields and courts, skate parks, a year-round pool, hiking trails perhaps at Shannon Hill. Options to get us all out. We all get along better if we play together. Please spend our tax money on schools, kids, teachers, police, fire, and EMS, and wise county governance. Offer tax incentive for wise, sustainable, future-looking homes and businesses. Because let's get real, the old days were not better. And the future will not be better unless we
15
all get our acts together and soon to proactively plan for a hotter, drier, more extreme planet. And the planet Earth is our only option. Thank you. Good
Thank
to
you,
see you all
sir.
again.
That was, you had that timed, Randy. Vicki Hart.
Vicki Hart, Louisa District. Nice to be before you again. Today I'd like to talk to you about three things. One is the road studies that are proposed. We have done road studies year after year after year after year. I haven't seen anything yet from the road studies. So while we're going to pay for more road studies, why can't you just change the speed limit and be done with it and actually do something? The second thing is WIC. I was deployed today to work for WIC because we don't have enough workers. And I spoke with Dr. Southall, and he said that WIC comes here once a week, and I've been deployed Mondays only. These people wait up to 3 months after the birth of a child to get a WIC appointment. In that first 3 months, that is one of the most important times of a newborn's life. And not going to see anybody is not really the way you want these kids to raise up. Now, I did do blood testing on them. I did their regular medical checks. But what I needed to say is it needs to be more than 1 day a week. If we can swing getting WIC here twice a week, on the website it says they're here 5 days a week from 8 to 4:30. But that is not what the doctors understand. And the last thing is I'd like to see our bond pay down. We keep creating more bonds, which creates more debt. I would like to see the estimated pay down for when we're going to be out of debt while we're continuing to increase or talk about possibly increasing taxes. And I'm not going into that. I'm just looking at the bond pay down for what we currently have before we start creating more things to pay for. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Scott, give me 5 minutes. Nathan Kogel.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, supervisors, and staff. I'm Lynn Kogel from the Mineral District, and I'm here tonight to tell you a little bit about the Louisa Housing and Homeless Coalition. Reverend Laura Cable and I are the co-chairs for that organization. Who we are, we're a working group of citizens. Mostly we represent local nonprofits, government agencies, several of the churches. And we were formed last year, April timeframe, because the nonprofits were finding we were getting requests from more and more homeless people for services. They needed housing. They needed help with food. So we'd refer them to the Resource Council for food. An emergency fund would help them with housing. The Housing Foundation could give them counseling. So some of those things could be met. But we said we need to do more because there are places like if they need a place to sleep tonight, we can't always fulfill that need. The Charlottesville shelters are often full. We don't have transportation like at 6 o'clock at night to go to Charlottesville. And no, I'm not here to ask you for money yet. But I just want to let you know, basically, that's kind of where we started. The Interagency Council said, let's do more research and see if we can figure out, okay, what services are available for these folks, what services do we still need, and what can we as a group help influence with other organizations? How can we work together with the churches and everyone and new volunteers to help these folks along? 211 Virginia confirmed for us that housing is a high priority for our residents. In 2023, of the 671 inquiries that came from Louisa County, 210, 31% were for housing, shelter and/or housing assistance, and 310, 46% were for utility assistance. So that's basically basic housing needs that people were calling to get requests or had requests for information. Our mission is that we collaborate with nonprofits, the faith-based community, businesses, and local government to increase affordable housing and to reduce homelessness in Louisa County. Everybody asks us about definitions, so I'll very quickly tell you our definition of homeless is an individual or family who lacks a fixed, regular, and adequate nighttime residence, such as those living in emergency shelters, transitional housing, or places not meant for habitation, like under bridges, in a tent in the woods. We do have those folks, unfortunately. Affordable housing, we accepted HUD's definition, generally defined as housing on which the occupant is paying no more than 30% of gross income for housing costs, including utilities. Since then, we've read that 30% is really low. The Louisa County website indicates a median household income just over $67,000. So if you figure 30% of that is $20,000 for their housing. Many of the clients coming to our agencies and nonprofits for help, their total income is less than $20,000. U.S. Census data 22 shows 10.7% of Louisa County persons in poverty. Yeah, there's a good chance those homeless folks are living in poverty. So we've continued to do a lot of research on local services. The good news is Louisa County is awesome. We have wonderful services here that provide a lot of help for these folks. The schools are a terrific resource. They do everything to get kids, even if they're homeless, registered in school. So all of that is really good. We looked at Charlottesville, and they're the only place in the Thomas Jefferson / Blue Ridge region or district that has emergency shelters right now. They have the Salvation Army and Pacham, which is a church-based sheltering service in the winter months. But again, our folks can't always get there, so how can we help them get there if they have openings? After all, I know it's budget time, and you all know about most of the agencies and what they provide, so I'm not going to try to cover all the wonderful agencies we have because you're already aware of what they're doing. We wanted to quantify the homeless population as best we could, so the coalition conducted a point-in-time study on January 24th of this year. That's a count of sheltered and unsheltered people who are experiencing homelessness on a single night in January. The program's administered by HUD, and we coordinated with the Blue Ridge Area Coalition for the Homeless for our study. We used local volunteers, a few churches, and sheriff's deputies to do the survey and provide a baseline. 30 people were identified, including children. Public schools and other agencies also report homeless families, but due to confidentiality with names, we can't compare our 30 with them. So there could be more, but we don't know where the duplications are. So do we have an exact number? No, but we have a baseline to work from. Part of our short-term focus involves coordinating with all the existing agencies, our nonprofits and churches to help meet these immediate needs, especially for those living in places not meant for habitation. We've updated a Louisa County street sheet guide that we distribute through the Sheriff's Department and other places so that when they run into these folks on the street, they can at least say, here's some resources, how can we help you? And I know the Sheriff's Department is awesome about trying to get people to shelter. So again, we're very fortunate to have the resources that we do. We're still working to try to understand where and how we can help with solutions. We're happy to share what we've learned with anyone who's interested in more information. But I want to say two things to close. Affordable housing is clearly part of the long-term answer for healthy, safe residents and the businesses who need a strong workforce. So as we add businesses, we need to think also about where are those employees going to live? Are we going to make them go to Charlottesville or Richmond? Or can we have more affordable housing here? So what are the options? And then I have to close with one quick success story. At our point-in-time study in January, we had an elderly disabled man who attended our Louisa location at Louisa Baptist Church. And he told us how he had lost his home here in Louisa last April, back taxes and some other costs, and he lost his home. He lived in his car for several months until a local church found out about him, and they knew someone who had a room that they were willing to share until they sold their house. So he's been living with this person for several months. Well, she's getting ready to sell her house, so he's about to be homeless again. One of our wonderful volunteers who happened to be at that luncheon spoke with this gentleman. She worked with him, got his permission to call him afterwards, followed up with him, found him housing. So he told me that day, he said, I just want my own place so I can have my grandkids come and visit me. And that really got me, since I have grandkids. I thought, I can't imagine not being able to have my grandkids come visit. So anyway, thanks to this volunteer and this particular luncheon, we reached someone. We found a home for someone thanks to a volunteer who was gracious and generous to work with this gentleman and make it happen. So I know that as a community together, we can continue to improve services that we already have. We can recruit more volunteers. We can work within county government and make it a very successful story for everyone. So thanks for your time. If you have any questions, you can get in touch with Reverend Laura or myself. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Lynn. And just for anybody that was watching the clock, she represented a group. I told her she had 7 minutes, but I asked for 5. That's why I stopped it and then let her pick it back up. So now, that's all the cards that I have for public comment. Is there anyone else here that would wish to address the board on something that is not a public hearing tonight? Okay. Well, so we'll close the public comment. And we'll move on to an information discussion item. Is VDOT's quarterly update, and that is presented by our resident engineer, Scott Thornton. Mr. Thornton?
Mr. Chairman, board members, how's everybody doing tonight?
Good, sir.
Apologize for the late release, but I have a packet in front of you. Is there a...
Right there in front, right here at this.
On the corner.
I got you. Oh, I got you. So I'll do my normal maintenance, and then we'll kind of go through this presentation. So a few items that weren't included in your packet are schedule resurfacing. Notice to proceed is March the 25th, and that's for our annual resurfacing. So all the schedules, the notice to proceed will be March 25th with a fixed completion date in November of this year. So anything on our schedule, they have March to November to complete. So our maintenance crews are out in advance of that doing any patching or anything in advance of the resurfacing work. Additionally, maintenance crews have switched over from a lot of their roadside to this resurfacing as well as pipe replacements. And then in the start of the summertime, once school's let out, we'll be resuming our shoulder work. And then the pipe replacements, I know Mr. Barnes, you and I talked about doing the ones around schools while school was out. So we're going to endeavor to get those all the way. Whatever we don't complete, we don't intend to be near school once school resumes back in the fall. So pipe failure is excluded. If pipe fails, we got to fix it. So with that, I'll go into our presentation. I just wanted to kind of go over a few projects that we've been working on. So the first one is the Route 15 turnkey maintenance. This one, if you recall, I talked about late last fall. So we still have an estimated start date of spring 2024. That is pushed back a little bit. We're still working on getting some right of entries and things like that from citizens. We are on track for a spring 2024 advertisement with a fall 2025 completion date. For anybody that isn't aware, this is just essentially a maintenance bundle. So things like tree trimming, replacement or rehabilitation of pipes, cleaning, roadside clearing, ditching, guardrail improvements, sign replacements, all that's included. And we're going from Zion Crossroads up to the Orange County line to the north on Route 15.
Can I ask you a question? I guess it'd probably be easier to ask questions as we go along.
Okay.
So you're doing resurfacing. You and I had talked, and you had talked to the board at one time. These rumble strips that VDOT puts in the road, there was some consideration given them to turning them so that they were called mumble strips. So they still wake the driver up, but they don't wake the neighbor, the houses along. Is that what's planned on this resurfacing?
So for 15, it's probably still going to remain as rumble strips. What we were talking about for the mumble strips is really on your secondary roads and on roads with a large residential population where it's very close to the highway. I know we do have residents on 15, but their homes are largely farther away from it. The other part to it is the recent crash history on 15 isn't that great with people crossing the center lines. So traffic engineering is a little adverse to making something
So
wider.
when you redo 522 then, based on what you just said, 522 will stay rumble strips. I live 3/4 of a mile off 522, and I can hear every car that goes
They're going
across.
to look at each individual section, but yeah, 522 in your primaries would generally stay as rumble strips. But like the secondaries, like Gardner Road and the ones that are narrow where people are hitting them, not that they're not hitting them infrequently on 522, but where they're definitely hitting them, or like I'm thinking like Gardner's Road is one, things like that. We would look at putting those into mumble strips because the homes are pushed right up on the road for the majority of those sections. But yes, that is being considered as we resurface roads.
Ms. Jones?
Yeah, as you go through, and excuse my voice, Boswell's Tavern, there's some homes that are right up on 15. Are you going to be considering that because there's a section of residential homes, they sit right there.
We wouldn't switch back and forth. It'd be one or the
So
other.
they're going to have the louder version of it.
Yes.
I don't know if I like that. That's going to be hard on some of them. They're elderly.
Do you have, I hate to belabor this point, but I get a lot of phone calls about that, and I've spoke to you about it. And I think you said that you have data that says that since these rumble strips were put in, that it's reduced accidents.
Yes.
So we've went from nothing for 100 years to something that's really loud, but you have an option to put something that's still loud to the driver but not loud to the neighbors. Would that not serve the same purpose? If you live anywhere near these main roads, again, I live 3/4 of a mile off 522. I can hear everybody that goes around the turn by Tim's Seafood Restaurant that happens to do it. I hear them all the time. And there's a ton of people that live between me. I'm not the one complaining, but there's a ton of people that live between me and 522 that obviously hear them. I don't understand VDOT's rationale that we can put something in that still alerts the driver without waking the neighborhood up or waking up the people at Boswell Tavern, and that's not an improvement of what we had for the last 80 years.
I can certainly take it to our traffic engineering folks and
Would you
pass
mind?
that along.
Would you mind?
Not at all.
I would appreciate it too.
Aren't you glad you're here every 3 months, Mr. Thornton?
I love coming here.
Y'all couldn't see his face. He didn't smile when he said that.
So the next one is Where's Crossroads Roundabout. So that one is well on its way. If anybody knows, it's gone through that. So like I told y'all back late last year, we have a construction contract value of $2.8 million. The biggest news on that one is the traffic switch over to the roundabout configuration is on schedule to happen by Memorial Day. So a large portion of that work, they will be in that roundabout by the time the summer hits. And then everything else will be happening in the periphery on the side streets. So that should alleviate some of the concerns you and I have talked about.
That's what I was going to ask. The 208 concerns?
Yes, so
Perfect.
that should resolve that. What they're doing now, they've got some flagging and things in place to flag that intersection, but with this, and then the work that happens on the side streets with the median, that should take care of those concerns.
Thank you.
It may not happen exactly right at Memorial Day, but based on the conversations I had with the ACE, that is the schedule.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And the next one is Hamilton Road Bridge. So couple things, I'm gonna kind of go probably a little bit out of order. So, as y'all remember, we were working with UVA to perform initial stakeholder assessments. UVA has performed those assessments, and the several items came out, but the three shared goals from stakeholders are what's in front of you. So we've got ensure a safe bridge for Louisa County, to the extent possible, preserve the historic dimensions of the bridge, and then provide a transparent, understandable process to those involved. So, for those that weren't here, in March 2023, almost a year ago today, the board requested VDOT initiate a project to address the needs at Hamilton, and requested that those needs include traffic, including all emergency vehicles, be able to pass the bridge. So VDOT's analyzed several options, engaged with the UVA, and these are the three options we developed. Option one is a restoration of costing about $5.9 million based on a June 2029 advertisement. The structure would remain posted at 15 tons, will not be able to carry emergency vehicle loads, and a funding option in addition to bridge maintenance would need to be identified, as a project would not qualify for state of good repair money. Second option is a rehabilitation replacement utilizing state force construction. That's $669,000, assuming an installation of fall of 2025. Structure is significantly rehabilitated or replaced entirely. The result would be a bridge that is not posted and will be capable of carrying all loads, including emergency vehicles. Option three is a rehab replacement utilizing SGR funds. That's $6.5 million, assuming a June 2029 advertisement. Bridge SGR program funding would be used, and there are more construction options that are available. So VDOT plans to move forward with option two. This is the state force bridge replacement. And we feel like we went with this option because it hits the 3 points that I showed in my first slide. The new bridge, it ensures a safe bridge for the use of Louisa residents, and ensures that the bridge won't be posted and traversable by emergency vehicles. To the extent possible, preserve the historic dimensions of the bridge. The proposed replacement is a single-lane truss bridge. A similar project in the region was completed on Route 603 in Albemarle County, and those are the pictures in the presentation you have in front of you. And then to provide a transparent and understandable process to those involved. So in the second sheet, FHWA has closed the prior 106 process. So the prior project was in a federal 106. Federal Highway has closed that process. And so as this project will be state funded, it's still going to be subject to a state environmental review process and will have stakeholder involvement. However, it won't be in a 106 unless we have a permitting issue that requires us to go into that process. So that's the option we have moving forward, and if anybody has any questions on that.
You have a question?
What would be you said that it wouldn't go into 106 unless it had to. What would be those mitigating factors that could push it into a 106?
So it could be things like an environmental survey is done and finds there are like an endangered species of animal, mussel, shellfish in the river. If we have to do modifications, significant modifications to the abutments, which will require a water quality permit, that would push us into a federal 106 process.
And so removing the former 106 has taken the federal government out of it, and this is only going to be under the state.
Correct, with the option that we're going with, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
The other two options would require a 106 process. They all have a public involvement piece, but the option one and option three, because of the funding source, automatically trigger a 106.
So there'll be public hearings on it. You say public involvement. What type
Yes, so
of
we'll have
engagement?
stakeholder meetings, and then the same thing when we do design public hearings for other bridges. All of that is involved. But due to our programmatic agreement with Department of Historic Resources, we have to do a little bit more than would be our standard, like the bridge on 759 over Meachump. You know, we move directly into public hearings, but with the programmatic agreement we have with DHR, the state review process is a little more involved. Not as involved as 106, but more involved than what we would normally go through. So we still plan to retain UVA to hold and promote those meetings as we move forward with it.
Thank you, Mr. Swinton.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yep.
Next is a resolution authorizing a budget supplement to Louisa County Public Schools for multiple capital projects. Mrs. Colvin.
So move.
Wait. I have a
Oh,
correction, though.
okay.
Before you do it, I want you to make, because I saw it as I was reading it. Third paragraph, the amount is, it's got 296. The final has the right amount. It should be 1,034,000
Total.
for the total. The total I have on the second page should be the same total on the first page, and I will fix that.
Can you give us a brief overview of why
So
we're...
what this is the schools have requested to move forward with some of the capital projects that are in our budget for '25 now, and they're asking to do that because they want to do it while school's out. So if they can go ahead and start the procurement process, which they can't do without y'all approving the funding source, and the funding they have, it's in the long-term capital reserves that they have. So we were going to use that in '25, we would just use it in '24 so they can start the procurement process. That way, when school's out, they can start doing it and be done by the time school starts and not disrupt school.
And I think one of them is like stage repair at the high school, school bus orders.
School bus replacement, stage repair at the high school, track resurfacing, elementary school refurbishing, replacing locks, and some fuel tank upgrades. They're all, nothing's cheap, but they're all normal maintenance kind of things. And
So move, Mr. Chair.
thank you.
Second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes 6-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Colvin. Next item is a resolution approving the execution and delivery of an amended and reinstated support agreement for the James River Water Authority. Mr. Goodwin?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. This is for the James River Water Project. As you all may recall, and certainly for anyone joining us tonight here or online, the James River Water Project was started several years ago, and the county constructed its portion from Ferncliff down to Route 6. And due to concerns at the initially proposed location at Point of Fork, the project was moved upstream. And we have a new, longer route that goes from the intake to the connection point of the already built line at Route 6. So the JRWA is very close now to issuing a permit. Mr. Barlow and I, who is now your representative along with me on the James River Water Authority Board, attended the JRWA meeting last week. The permit process is going very well. Today was the closing date for the public comment period. The consulting parties appear to be very supportive of the current project location. The price tag obviously did increase since it's a longer line, and significant time has gone by since the permitting process was undertaken initially. And so we are at the point now where, assuming that we have a permit sometime in April, we would need to begin construction fairly soon after that. Timing of construction is important because it's an element of cost control. There's a lot of piping that has to be ordered. There's a lot of equipment that has to be moved around, staged. There are only certain times of the year when you can actually work in the river under state and federal regulations. So the JRWA has before you tonight the support agreement for its debt issuance for the remainder of the project. The JRWA already resolved, again at its meeting last week, to issue the debt. This is the support agreement, which each county will consider and hopefully approve. Just broad strokes of the document, it lists the total for the issuance at $49 million. This is a project total of roughly $45 million. 1 year's worth of the debt service payment, which would have to be placed in an escrow fund just to protect the debt if necessary, and some issuance costs themselves. The JRWA itself is issuing this debt. Each county is responsible for half of the project costs. The document is similar in form to the document that you all adopted and that Fluvanna County adopted in 2016. Which govern the debt issuance and the county's support of that issuance. It includes materially the same terms, state aid intercept, the requirement for the counties to back the debt if necessary, if JRWA is unable to fulfill it. I'm glad to answer any questions, but one thing I do want to add, I almost forgot. The bonds will not be sold until we have the Corps of Engineer permit for the process. So the possibility of selling bonds for a project which cannot be constructed in the short term, that would not happen. We're joined here tonight by Mr. Sean Eichert. He's the financial advisor for the JRWA, and he and I are happy to answer any questions that you may have, and I would ask for your approval of this document.
Mr. Chairman?
Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Goodwin?
I do, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
I had a constituent email me.
Use the mic, especially since your voice.
Yeah. I had a constituent email me today. Just to clarify, the 49 million, that's going to be a shared
Yes.
between our county and Fluvanna County.
Yes, ma'am.
And hypothetically, if we were not to issue this, what would happen? Where would we go from here? Would it not?
You would continue your reliance on the wells
Right.
at Zion Crossroads, which I think most people would agree is potentially unsustainable, not
It is.
only in any place. I think it's better to be reliant on a river source like the James than it would be on well water. If we didn't issue the debt, then there's a potential that Fluvanna could decide to move the project forward on its own. It's more likely, perhaps, that the project would not move forward.
Right. And 20 years would
Yes, ma'am.
come to an end. Okay, that's all. Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Woodward.
I just have a comment. The understanding that no debt will be issued without the permit in hand makes me a go for this. I was really concerned about that and discussed with Mr. Goodwin this afternoon, and he explained that to me, and that's, I think we need to go forward with this.
Any other comments?
Comment.
Mr. Barlow, our new liaison to the JRWA.
I've been pretty hard on the JRWA and being the new liaison on that. I found that the people that are members of the JRWA want this thing finished and done as quickly as we do. We're 20 years into this, actually 24 years into it, I think. We've spent a huge amount of money. We're at the end now. And like Mr. Woodward said, when we went over the meeting Monday, I believe it was, this puts us in line with the VRA for the to do the funding and bonding. And if we miss that, then I'm not sure how long it extends it before we can get back in again. So we're very close to getting this thing done. And I think every one of us, and I know everybody in Fluvanna on their board and the JRWA wants to finalize this thing too. So with that said, I will make the motion to forward this thing on and approve it as it is.
Second.
Been properly moved and seconded that we approve the resolution. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 6-0. Thank you. Next is committee reports. Do we have any committee reports? None today? Okay.
Mr. Chairman, just briefly, on the Transportation Safety Commission, we did approve some speed and safety studies tonight, and you all had adopted a protocol a few months back that asked the TSC, the Transportation Safety Commission, to review those first. I think they've had some delays in meeting more frequently, so that was the reason that we asked the board to approve these speed studies in advance tonight. So moving forward, I think they have a meeting in April.
That's correct, yes.
And we will be talking to them at their meeting in April about meeting more frequently so that we can meet the protocol that you adopted.
All right. Any board appointments? I don't have any board appointments. Do we have any, Ms. Denny? County Administrator's report?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. And one more thing on committee reports, if you might permit me to go backwards just briefly, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
There's an opportunity. Louisa Clean is working with the county and is exhibiting great leadership in efforts to host a Clean Week in Louisa County and to encourage people who have adopted highways to clean those highways up, getting volunteers to clean up highways that have not been adopted, and they're going to hold a fairly significant event in April. And they've made application to VDOT to support that effort. VDOT has, it's
of a scale that is large enough, impressively large enough in a good way, that it would require VDOT to approve a special use permit. There's some requirements that come along with special use permits through VDOT application fees, $1 million liability insurance requirements that could be waived if the county made application on behalf of Louisa Clean. I would like to do that. I don't want to do that without your knowledge and the public's knowledge. So I wanted to tell you that and make sure that there were no concerns with that. I've talked to them about this plan. They're grateful, and I think it'll allow a really good effort to move forward in the county, a wonderful effort.
We need to vote on
Does anybody have any objection? Well, I would add, I don't have any objection, but I would add, especially this time of year, when all the greenery is dead, the litter problem in Louisa is terrible. I think we need to give a shout out to the schools during asynchronous day. They have the kids come out, I think at least twice, and clean, Louisa Clean. I've organized some cleanups. I know other people have, churches, people have adopted roads. But I think one of the things we just need to be aware of is it's a generational thing, and we need to be teaching our children not to throw stuff out the window. But it's awful. Now, the only thing that makes me feel good about Louisa is when I cross the lake and go into Spotsylvania. It's worse. It's terrible, and that's just such a bad look. It's just such a bad look. So, since we've backed up to committee reports, I did have one myself. I had it written down here.
Can I say something before you?
Sure.
do so?
Yes, ma'am.
I think that we might be unjustly blaming our children for the litter. In what you just said, I think that I've seen many adults participate.
Oh no,
in
I didn't
littering.
know. I'm saying it's our children see our adults. Our adults need to change the behavior so they're a better example to their children.
Exactly.
Yeah, 100%. No, it's
Miss-
not. It's not our children.
No.
Mr.
Yes,
Chair, I know a few meetings back, we had discussed about, back in my younger days, we called them trustees, but the prisoners working, picking up trash, had to go to Fredericksburg, I don't know, last week before, and sure enough, they had, I think it was 3 people in orange suits on the side of the road with somebody watching them, picking up trash on 208. So I guess that's a different jail,
It is.
but maybe we could encourage them to, I mean, obviously it's allowed. It's not
It
a
is-
state thing.
It is allowed. Mr. Goodwin and I both, Mr. Goodwin more than I, but I reached out to the superintendent at Central Virginia Regional Jail. The issue that we have right now is the level of prisoner that are being held in the jail. The security risk is too high to have those folks come out. So but not only has Louisa expressed it, I think Fluvanna has expressed that once, if that security level changes and they have prisoners that come out, because up until year before last, they were pretty active. They were pretty active here in the county. So,
I think the side of the bus said Rappahannock Regional Jail or
yeah,
something like that.
yeah. On committee reports, Mr. Goodwin and I have met a couple times with the Louisa County Resource Council. They get a lot of calls, and the county itself gets a lot of calls on people wanting to know how to volunteer in the county, what organizations they can volunteer with, where they can volunteer, whether it's Louisa Clean or a number of other things. So the Resource Council has put a plan together, and I think we'll probably see that here within the next couple meetings. A Volunteer in Louisa organization, which is similar but different than Volunteers of Louisa, that will be one central point of information and direction to direct people, and it will be run through the Resource Council. They have a staff person there on hand that can do it. They're working on getting a website. Just wanted to make you aware of that because there's so many people who do ask to volunteer in the county. So since we're on committee reports, and does anybody have any more?
I'd like to add.
Yes, sir, go ahead.
I'm on a roll. I know we have some open positions on committees from supervisors. Commission on Aging is one of those that I happen to be the liaison on. And I'm guilty of it myself, so not pointing fingers unless one's headed this way as well. But if we could get those done, I know on that committee it would really help.
Okay,
Appreciate that.
all right.
How many do
Yes,
we
sir.
need?
Pardon me?
How many?
It's in your-
two
it's in your-
per.
it's in your packet.
District, I think.
Yeah, it is, 2
And
per
in 3
district.
weeks, it's gonna be the whole board. See the expiration dates?
Yeah, well, yeah, I don't really understand that either, but they're getting ready to redo their bylaws, so it'd be a really good time to make those appointments.
All right. All right, moving on. We have one public hearing. Public hearing, proposed real estate tax increase for fiscal year 2025, presented by Mrs. Colvin. Ms. Colvin? Pardon me? Oh, Mr. Goodwin. I don't care, either one of you.
I'm glad to make a few remarks. You've got your monthly reports in there for the
Oh,
month.
I'm sorry, I did skip over you. I get so tied up in committee reports.
That's
that
okay.
Yeah.
I'm happy for you all to skip me if you want, but I'm glad to
No,
to make
go
a few
ahead, go
remarks if
ahead.
you want.
I'd already checked you off on the agenda, but,
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. The monthly reports for the month of February are in my report. I do want to draw your attention specifically to the Water Authority's report on page 103. I've been working with Ms. Bachman to just provide a different way of presenting that information. So on page 103, you can look at every facility in the county, every facility that the Water Authority operates. So that would be Northeast Creek Water Treatment, Regional Wastewater Treatment, Zion Crossroads Wastewater Treatment, and the Wellfield at Zion Crossroads. And for a period of time back, you can see exactly how much water or wastewater was treated, how much capacity was sold, and what our permitted capacity at each one of those facilities is. I think it's a really good way to communicate that information. Is it blank? Is it really?
it is.
Get out of here. Did I give you the wrong day? I'm so sorry. It's in there somewhere. I saw it. I gave you the wrong page. Anyway, I will find the right page and I will email it all to you. But she did a great job on it, and I salute her for it, and I think it'll be helpful. And I'll find the page so that you can hopefully agree that it'll be helpful. There is a stakeholder report. Mr. Thornton noted the Hamilton Road Bridge progress. If you're interested in reading the stakeholder report that the folks from UVA put together for the bridge, it's in there. There's a lot of detail. It's very helpful. And just please do remember that Easter celebration will be on the 23rd at Walton Park for the Easter extravaganza. That concludes my prepared remarks.
Anyone have any questions for Mr. Goodwin? All right, Mrs. Colvin?
Chairman and members of the board, tonight, as per code section 58.1-3321, any year that a county's annual real estate assessment results in an increase of greater than 1% over the real property, once you take out the new construction, then we must reduce the rate or maintain the current rate after holding a public hearing. So our current year's assessed value, excluding new construction, did increase by 7.83%. That would make the lowered tax rate 66.8 cents per hundred of assessed value. Our current tax rate is 72 cents for a difference of 5.2 cents per hundred. Our budget is built on the 72-cent tax rate. So to explain kind of some of the way the assessment office makes their determination, we have Cindy Graves with the real estate assessor's office, and she's going to kind of do a presentation and give a little bit of information on that before you do the public hearing.
Good evening, Chairman and members of the board. I'm Cindy Drays. I'm the Deputy Assessor for the county. And then we're going to go over this presentation or overview of the process. It'll be a refresher for some of you and maybe some new information for others.
Should be the right side there.
Right side?
You got it.
Okay, thank you. All right, so the overview is the relationship between the assessor's office and the Board of Supervisors. We start with that slide and this telling you the differences or the separateness between the two. This is mainly for the public, but it's for you to know that we have a code section, 58.1-3201, that requires us to assess properties at 100% market value. just a slide to show the differences and how the county is tiered out in the assessment process. Voters vote for the Commissioner of Revenue when we're under the Commissioner of Revenue's office, and the voters vote for you, and you are who determines the tax rate. Concerns about values should be addressed to the assessor's office. If there is someone in the public that has a concern about their value of their property, it should be addressed to us, and we do encourage that, and we recognize all appeals. Concerns over tax rate, as you're aware, should be addressed to you. The way our information is processed, or the way we do appraisals or assessments here in the county, is by mass appraisal. Mass appraisal is when we group like properties together using common data and then do a market analysis on the sales that happen. We do vacant land first in this assessment process, and we do resales after that to determine what the market is. New construction sales, as Ms. Wanda Colvin mentioned, are not part of the analysis because of the state code with the Department of Taxation. Once they are resold, these houses, they can be used in the analysis, but they are not used in the first initial year of construction. We divide the county into several areas or neighborhood markets to stratify the data that we receive. Examples of areas or neighborhood markets would be Lake Anna Communities, Waterfront and Water Access, Spring Creek, Blue Ridge Shores, or Rural Residential, as they are analyzed separately. We further stratify by story height. Maybe a 1-story would not be compared to a 2-story, or a 1.5-story would not be compared to a 1-story. We look at those characteristics and then stratify again by square footage, or appraise by square footage, age, condition, number of bathrooms, to further value the home. Then we adjust those homes equally across by like characteristics. The reason why these ratios are important to us is for our public service numbers. We have a ratio that we try to meet. We try to meet the 100%. We don't often meet that. Last year, our state validated number or ratio was 94.1. That's usually validated in April. We have not received our validation back, although we have submitted. Our internal ratio number is 97.5. Currently, so we're waiting to see what the state validation is on that. Again, we talked about it, and I want to make sure I'm emphasizing it again. We send out notices. The notices say this is not a bill, but it says, please call our office if you have any questions, or you have the right to appeal, or you want to talk to us about your values. Once we do our reassessment, which we do annually, we send our information to the board. That's where you get the values, and then you get to work the numbers with your budget. And that's basically all I have. If you have any questions, please let me know.
Mr. Barnes.
Thank you so much
Thank you,
for doing that. What happens if your 97% ratio, the state disagrees with you, and they come back with a lower ratio? So they come back with, say, 94%. What happens then?
That changes the public service, because that's a state validation, so it changes the public service numbers, so the ratio that they would pay on those public service numbers. We have in the past sometimes said to them, look, you disqualified this sale, we think it's a qualified sale because of this. We do have the opportunity to almost appeal their numbers, but it's tough.
So make a long story short, they kind of check your numbers.
They check my numbers.
Mrs. Jones.
So you mentioned Spring Creek and you mentioned Lake Anna. So when you're assessing homes, say in Spring Creek, that's in my district, You're like homes within Spring Creek, but not like homes with Cross Green Springs District, or is it like homes within Spring Creek?
No, it would just be Spring Creek is analyzed. All the resales that happened in Spring Creek are analyzed separately from Green Springs. Green Springs area is actually considered rural residential for the most part. And then Lake Anna, it's stratified in two different ways, waterfront and water access, but it is only compared to each other, only analyzed in other lake communities.
Within Spring Creek, is it analyzed as golf course versus not golf course?
The land is,
Okay.
the homes are not.
Got it, the land.
So, and we
Okay.
value land first.
Okay.
So we look at the land first as if it was vacant, value that land and get that number correct, and then we add the house into it.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Chair. Thank you so much for bringing this information tonight.
Thank you, sir.
One of your slides said it was a 5-year rotation. Can you explain that
Yes,
to me?
we attempt to do a 5-year rotation on properties to go out and actually do a physical field check on these reassessments. The issue is we have to categorize everything. So new construction is first. We have to get that in there first. So we have those values in, and then we have to do. We would do like miscellaneous permits and also sales. Sales and new construction are our two main items that we must do, and we have to verify every sale. We verify, we go out, we look, we make sure that what is physically on that property is being valued and it's being valued correctly. If it's not, then it changes the ratio between a sale price and an assessed price.
So for a new home,
Yes, sir.
y'all actually go out and look at that?
Absolutely.
Okay. So you don't wait 5 years before you look at a new home and use the figures that the building permit has or the square footage
No, sir.
calculates out to?
We go out as soon as it's finals or COs. We want to be out there. We want to have a tape line and we want to measure.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Breyer.
You had mentioned just a few minutes ago that normally you try to get out every 5 years to check on, I'm assuming that's spot checks, not everywhere. I know you go by sales and then you have new houses that you go out and do check. But I think where a lot of homes are falling through the crack is that if you based it on sales, they've fixed the house up to prime condition so that they can sell it. But the average person is their house, may be falling behind in repairs, and they're the ones that are really getting hit hard because their houses are not reflective of what the market is indicating when somebody sells a house. So they're the ones that I think are getting hurt. I know, my mother's house was assessed pretty doggone high, and Mr. Gasper was good enough, actually we sold it to my sister, and he was good enough to go look at it, and it was reduced tremendously. And I know that there are other situations in this county that, especially the elderly people that don't get out, they don't go up to the assessor's office and have that done. I would just like to see some kind of way that maybe more often, especially when you know that there are elderly people trying to stay in their homes, more than likely their homes are not up to par with sale houses, which is what things are being based on. So, at some point, I would just like to see that these sales of people that are simply trying to stay in their house is really more reflective of what their house is worth and not what some neighboring house is being sold for that has been renovated and in prime condition. And I think an awful lot of our citizens are getting caught in that place where their homes are, they're just living in it. It's not up. It may cost thousands and thousands of dollars to get it ready to sell. But these new sales prices are what everything's been based on. So I think an awful lot of our citizens are getting caught with houses that are far over assessed. And I don't know how you correct that unless you do it more regularly or target those homes that haven't been looked at for a good while, or, that you've got elderly people in. So it just seems to be a need for a slightly different system for catching those houses that are not being sold, they're not on the market for sale, and they're not new construction. I think, like I say, we're missing a lot of people that their homes are not nearly as good as what they're being assessed at.
To follow up on Mr. Barlow's comment, if that's the case, that somebody feels that a house across the street, down the street, sold, and my house isn't comparable to the house that's sold, but it's in the same neighborhood, doesn't the Commissioner's office have an appeal process?
The assessment department does have an appeal process, and that's what we were encouraging people to do. If you feel like your house is being overassessed because of condition or quality or age or what's in it, not factually, we don't have the factual information, we encourage you, please call. We will come out. We will come out and see it, and then we'll know then whether it is in the condition that it's being assessed at.
No, go ahead.
Mr. Gasper, he's explained that, and I know that you do look at them when people come out. What I'm getting at is a lot of our elderly population, they don't know to come up here and.
You don't have to come. You don't have to come.
Right.
We send you a notice, and on that notice, there is a phone number. So we're just a phone call away. And if you call us, that is the start of an appeal.
Okay.
How many, and if you don't know this exactly, that's fine, but if you can give me a rough number, and maybe Mrs. Fletcher, last year, or so far this year,
Okay.
how many people have appealed?
Last year was 146.
How many properties do you appraise? Roughly.
Oh, gosh, over 1,200.
How many properties do we assess?
Do we, how many properties?
I'm sorry,
how many
assess, yes,
properties
I'm
are
sorry,
assessed?
yeah.
Last year, it was 29,402. This year, it's 29,702. And so far, we've had 53 appeals. And we still have 2 more weeks left of appeal season, so.
And I want to follow up, want to make sure I understand this. So you showed a slide that said that state code says that the appraisal should be 100% of market value sales price, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And I looked on the county's website because there was something put out the other day. In 2022, when the state tax department validates your work, right, not us, not anybody else in the county, the appraisal was 3.9% under the code's requirement.
Correct.
So they were roughly appraised at 96.1% of market value. In 2023, it was 5.9% under state code, so the property was assessed at 94.02% of market value. How does that impact, you keep talking about public service. The big public service taxpayer I think about in this county is Dominion, God bless you, is Dominion. So is Dominion assessed at 6% less than their assessed value? Do they pay 6% less in taxes? So it impacts everybody across the county the same way, every property taxpayer. Okay. I just want to make sure I had that in my head right. Anybody else have anything?
Now you're doing a great job.
Anything else? All right, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Ms. Fletcher, thank you. All right, are we ready to open public hearing, I guess? Sure. All right, we will open the public hearing on this proposal. I do have a couple cards, so I'll call you first. I also have a letter that will go into the public record from Edwin Laplace, who is in the Cuckoo District, who sent a letter and asked for it to be added to the public record. Well, Mr. Sexton, since I called you earlier, I'll call you now. We'll give you 3 minutes, name and voting district.
All right. David Sexton and Louisa voting
Yes.
district. So appreciate the board letting me speak tonight. Thank you guys for your service and what you do. Mr. Barlow, thank you for your comments on the ridiculously inflated market right now as far as, property values and those that are struggling to pay their taxes. I'm not shy about voicing my opinion on the Board of Supervisors on the Facebook residence page in Louisa, so I figured before anybody said anything that I'd say it there. I'd come out in public and say it as well. But I want to encourage the board to consider carefully the tax rate on the residents of Louisa County. At a time where we're already bearing the burden of inflation and high gas prices, we're asking that you please not compound the situation with our tax rate. We're actually asking you guys to please lower the tax rate instead of keeping it the same or increasing it. Mr. Adams, you did tell me a few months ago when we were in the back here that the whole reason for bringing in the Amazon data centers is so that we don't have to raise taxes on the citizens of Louisa. But I wanted to share something about Amazon themselves. Wanted everyone to know that Amazon actually reported over $30 billion in profits in 2023. And Louisa did decide to give Amazon a tax break on those data centers that are set to come in. They're going to be taxed at a lower rate. The citizens of Louisa County are asking you to please consider them more than Amazon. And when you look at the tax rate, we're asking that you please actually lower it and take some of the burden away from us. We did that for Amazon, and the residents of Louisa County are just asking that you do the same for them. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Chris Slough. Chris Slough.
See, I'm Chris Lyles from Mineral District. I just want to thank you guys for letting me come out, say my piece, do my civic duty. One thing I'm happy to see is that I think we're kind of getting dismissed with the wordplay and semantics of what a tax increase is this time around, because we're even in the public hearing and calling this proposed real property tax increase. We're not pointing the finger around between Board of Supervisors and Commissioner of Revenue. And bottom line is, if your bill is more, it's a tax increase, ever how you want to cut it. And the Commissioner of Revenue, they did a great job. One thing I didn't hear in there and really never get an answer to, also in Virginia Code 581, the counties are required at a minimum to reassess every 4 years. However, in Louisa, we choose to do it every year. I think if we did it less, that would help you kind of level set the family's budgets, so we could plan to something at least for some period of time rather than every 12 months. And per the Commissioner of Revenue, the frequency with which they choose to assess is not their decision. It's the county's decision, which I assume means the Board of Supervisors' decision. But going on, echo what the other gentleman said, the citizens of Louisa really need a break. You're talking 12%, 14% in 2022, 12% in 2023, rounded up 8% in 2024, which nobody said here tonight really means if we do nothing else, that 8% is really 13% because we gave a 5% one-time rebate last year. So if we do nothing, we're going to get last year's. That's coming in too. At a minimum, I think the 5% rebate should again be applied since we opened that Pandora's box last year rather than just using the tax rate. And I would also think we could reduce the tax rate along with that. How you do that, I've seen some good work from you guys with pushing back on like Historical Society, push back on Fluvanna Louisa Housing Foundation. I think that should be done with absolutely every single external agency. That's not your mission. That's not the county's mission. That's not government's mission. Some bigger ticket items we could look at in the budget if you want options. $3.5+ million for 2 turf fields behind the middle school in 2024. That's not a need, that's a want. Probably a $25 to $30 million in the budget for a CTE vocational building in 2024, that's a need, that's a want, not a need.
15 seconds.
The middle school expansion, yeah, that's a need, but we got plenty of other tax revenues from when we're gonna realize this tax increase from solar farms, Amazon, hydroponic lettuce facilities. But the citizens really need a break, and we need to get a clear understanding on the board, the difference between wants and needs in this county. And just not to, I'm not saying anything, all of them are good ideas. Just because the school brings it, that don't mean you got to do it this year. You can balance these things out and not hit us all at one time. Thanks. Sorry I went over by a few minutes, a second or two.
Seconds.
But hey, I appreciate it, and I really thank you for all you do.
Thank you, Mr. Love. Vicky Hart.
Vicki Hart, Louisa District. I'd like to talk about the appeal process. I went through the appeal process. As you all know, my property floods when it rains. And the first one was denied. The second, the Board of Equalization also denied it based on the value of all the homes around me that don't flood. That's how the appeal process works. As a result, my mortgage payment went up $200 a month with the 5% rebate. And my insurance is not up for update yet until the middle of this year, which is also going to go up, which is going to increase it even more. And we're not talking about the 5% that you did not collect last year that you will be collecting this year. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a record. I don't have any other cards. I see people here. Does anyone else want to address the board? Yes.
My name's Steve Randolph, and I'm with the Cuckoo District. Thank you for hearing me. I've looked, and I've spoken to Mr. McCotter, and I've gone on the internet, and I've checked all the websites that will value a house. And I've checked Zillow. My house is booked at low value of $558. High value, $648. County says it's worth $686. The same with a couple of the other ones, Redfin. They're all saying it's lower. So I asked myself, how do you come up with the numbers? And I hate to use this word, but I will, collusion. How does that work? The realtors, obviously, they're going to get a commission on what they sell. So they turn around and say to a potential seller, I want $640,000 for my home. Oh, no, you can get $700,000 for this. And they keep doing that. And then what happens is the tax office speaks with the realtors and the realtors say, no, you can get a lot more for that. And then you guys get stuck with making the decision. How much is the house worth? Well, if you go on the internet and look, it's nowhere near what they're saying it's worth. Now, I appealed it, and I had a young lady come out to the house. Very nice, and I sat down and I spoke to her about it. She understands what I'm talking about. But the bottom line is, when you get the realtors and you get the assessors, it's like hitting the lottery. You could also say somebody or 5 people in a neighborhood want to sell a comparable house. And the realtors, or you tell them, you say, well, it's $550, and that's great. So you sell the house, and then all of a sudden 5 other people jump in and say, oh, no, we'll give you $700,000 for this house. So right there, you've artificially inflated the price of the property. That's all I'm saying. I'm trying to get an answer, and I'm really not getting one. And I moved from North Carolina 4 years ago. My taxes when I moved here, my taxes were $2,600. With this increase, they're going to be 5,000. Not very good, but thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Randolph. Anybody else wish to speak?
Fill out a card, you know who to give it to.
You can give it to him.
I'll take it.
This over here.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. My name's Kevin Long. I live over off Shannon Hill near the 64. Couldn't tell you what district it is. I'm sorry. I moved here in 2017. We like the area. We like everything about this county, but these taxes are killing us. I mean, I've got my assessor bill that they mentioned here, right? And if you take a look at this, our house value for just a structure went up almost $64,000 since 2022. Nothing's been done to that house. Nothing's been changed at that house. We've got several new constructions on our block. The rest of the houses aren't anywhere near the size of my house. So if you do an assessment of that area like assessors do or any appraiser does, they can only go within a certain amount of miles from that house to find a similar house, similar size, similar rooms, X, Y, and Z. There's no comparison in that particular area. Based off of what I heard earlier, that's what they were doing, but it went up anyways. A couple of questions I have for everybody here. Number one, why do we have to raise taxes right now? What is the purpose? What are we going to do with that money? I don't know. I didn't see it on the website. They say, hey, go to this website and learn more about it. I didn't see a thing about this new proposal on the website. I saw it for every other year, but not this year. The assessors use a whole bunch of information they get off the internet. I've done it before. I've done assessments before. I've done home assessments before. And like you said, he went through the internet and his house is not the same price as what he saw everywhere else. Why do assessors always come up with a higher value than if you're actually selling your house? It's a very good question. I don't know how they do it. I'd like to see the math on that. Right now, the market values that we're seeing, the explosion we're seeing is very reminiscent to 2008. I'm sure all of you remember what happened in 2008, right? So here in a year, year and a half, 2 years, what's going to happen? The market's going to crash. Do our taxes go down? I've never seen it. I mean, has anybody seen the taxes go down after a crash? You know, maybe after everybody screams and whines, I don't have any money. Sure, 2 years later, but not immediately. So I'd say to you guys, if you're going to approve this, put a clause in there. If market crashes and everything goes bottoms out, taxes will drop by X amount per whatever it dropped. Make it happen. Make it say, hey, if you want money now, you're going to give it back later if it goes back down. And that's going to save all of us residents money in the long run. I mean, I would much rather pay an assessor right now $300 to assess my house, bring that over to these guys and say, hey, this is what an actual assessor said looking at my house, not a bunch of numbers on a piece of paper. This is what it's worth. I'll do that. I mean, it's going to save me money in the long run, so I'll do that. Actually, I'm going to do that here next week. But if I have to do that, spend money out of my own pocket, that's a bad deal. Second thing, there's an appeal process. I get it. It's great. An appeal process is awesome. However, why is it up to me to prove what my house is worth to the county assessor?
15 seconds.
I think that they should have a correct answer rather than an assumption, which is what you do off of large numbers. I don't think I actually should have to prove what my house is worth. That's not on me. So thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Anyone else that wishes to speak? Sir.
Good evening. My name is Patrick Longerbeam. I live in the Louisa district. I apologize. I'm under the weather right now. I get the general consensus that people are frustrated, about the assessed values going up. My house and land has went up $40,000. I wish we could come up with a sensible solution, I spoke with Mr. Woodward like a few weeks ago or a few days ago about about how the process works, and it seems like the assessment office, the margin of error is very small. I purchased 2 pieces of property in Louisa, I would say over the last 10 years, and both pieces of property that I purchased, I would say that I purchased my last piece of property for 3/4 of what it was assessed for, and then the first piece of property, I paid for in cash and got it for about 2/3. I do understand they have a job to do and that the margin of error is very small. I just wish we could come up with a sensible approach on how we assess, the properties. because every year I dread seeing the statement and that it goes up, and it's like I'm worried about what next year is going to bring. And I know that's not necessarily what you guys could control, but if you could look at the tax rate and just keep in consideration about the assessed values are going up until we can come up with a better solution, I would greatly appreciate it. I'm a disabled veteran. I'm not at 100%, and I'm a single income family, and I have 2 school-age children. And one of the gentlemen that came out and did my assessment, I know that he owns a home in Louisa, and he has a child that's in a similar grade as my son. So I do know it's just not myself and the people that are up here speaking that are feeling the burden of the increase in assessed values. And I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Hope you feel better. Anyone else wish to speak? One more time? Yes, sir.
My name's Mike Yates, Zion Crossroads. I didn't realize we were having the meeting tonight, didn't really have anything planned, but I think just going back to what we had talked about last year, double-digit increases on assessments is just bad tax policy. Go back to Proposition 13, California, 2-3%. I mean, that's kind of what they do. They find other ways to tax you, but you're not going to tax people out of homes. All these concerns, I mean, that's kind of what it's coming out from. The gentleman talked about North Carolina. He's 100% right. North Carolina does not tax nowhere near what we tax here. And that's something that we have to look at. Especially when you have these, I don't know if we can call it real estate booms, if lack of housing. Say this continues for 5 years. We're just going to keep on taxing people up to this. It's a bad idea. Then next thing you're going to see people putting foreclosures in the paper, and nobody wants that. And the reality is, folks can't keep up with these big increases. Nobody's getting, even if we're saying we're 8% this year, nobody's getting 8% raises at work. I mean, it's coming from somewhere, so we really need to, especially when we're talking about big ticket items. State of Virginia, what are we losing when it's like 97%, 96%? What's the dollars that we're losing? And we're spending millions of dollars for artificial turf, for a practice field? Excuse me. We just need to think about what we're spending money. I think the school does a great job, and it's their job to come out and ask for, hey, we need this, we need that. That's their job. But sometimes our job here is to say no. It's just these double-digit increases, it can't continue. I know it's 8%, but just like what Chris mentioned, you got to go back on top of what the rebate we had last year. Extrapolate it out. I'd ask everybody to do it. Do it 10, 20, 30 years. Guesstimate what your assessment's going to be. It's ridiculous. You can't keep doing it at these clips. 2-3%, nobody's coming up here talking. They're not doing it. But when you go like 2-3 years ago when it's like 15%, 14%, 8%, what everybody wants really this year, tax neutral, not a rebate, tax neutral. Don't be spending things that you don't have. Just bring it down into some fiscal responsibilities with it. I think that's what most people would like to see. That's all I got.
Thank you, sir.
Yep.
All right, anybody else? All right, seeing no one else, close the public hearing. Mr. Barnes?
So moved.
Don't need to take any action tonight. Thank you. Though, the next meeting, we'll have the public hearing notice on the budget, and then I will ask at the meeting in April 28th, 29th, whatever that meeting is, to adopt the budget, the tax rate, and stuff like that. But if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Thank you. Is there a second? Is there a second? Second?
We're not taking an action.
No. This is in the meeting.
He moved to adjourn. Properly moved and seconded, we adjourn. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Mr. Barnes, I'm sorry.
No, I was adjourning.
Aye.
Sorry.
Any opposed?